Did you also feel like this scene was just completely broken? Like for years, many fans have looked at this exact moment as the point where the show just gave up. And honestly, if you look at the facts, it makes zero sense. The Lannister soldiers literally threw down their weapons. The city is surrendering. Everything she ever wanted is right there, and she just burns it? It's like working your butt off for years to buy your dream house, finally getting the keys, and then burning it down before you even step inside. Plus, thousands of innocents die. The exact people she spent her whole life trying to save. Usually the explanation is, she went mad, like her father. Bad genes. Burn them all! But here is the problem. Aerys was not born as the Mad King. He was a normal ruler for most of his life. He became paranoid after betrayal and months of imprisonment. But what if there is another explanation? And Daenerys did not become mad in a common sense, and what happened to her was something much more dangerous? What if Jon was right to do what he did, and it is purely based on George Martin lore, not the 8th season's questionable decisions? What if that was actually to be expected? So what happened to Daenerys? To find the exact moment everything started going wrong, you have to go all the way back to Season 5 in the fighting pits. Up until that day, Dany was trying so hard to be a peaceful, diplomatic queen.
I will not let those I have freed slide back into chains.
And her reward? The Sons of the Harpy cornered her and tried to butcher her. Fortunately, her dragon came to the rescue. Where did he come from? How did he know she needed help? We'll get to that a bit later. That day, something crucial happened. Daenerys flew a dragon for the first time. What does this have to do with her madness in King's Landing? Actually, a lot. Drogon took her to his lair. In the show, she walks away almost immediately and runs into the Dothraki horde. But in the books, she spent many days with Drogon feeding on the leftovers of his meals. And while she was there, something changed. At the end of the 5th book, she was having visions and talking to Jorah's ghost. "You took Meereen," he told her, "yet still you lingered. To be a queen, you are a queen," her bear said. "In Westeros, it is such a long way," she complained. "I was tired, Jorah. I was weary of war. I wanted to rest, to laugh, to plant trees and see them grow. I am only a young girl." "No, you are the blood of the dragon. Dragons plant no trees. Remember who you are, what you were made to be. Fire and blood," Daenerys told the swaying grass. That line, "dragons plant no trees," is everything. She realizes that maybe this peaceful queen thing was never really her. Why did she start having these visions now? Was the place special? Was she just exhausted? Not really. But before we answer that, I want to ask another question. How do you think the Targaryens flew the dragons?
I don't know how to ride a dragon.
Nobody does, until they ride a dragon.
I mean, how did they make them fly where needed and attack when needed? Dragons are huge. Some of them are comparable with the largest modern aircraft. How can a tiny human ride such a monster? Voice commands seem unlikely. Dragons' ears are far away, and in the middle of fire, wind, and battle, voice commands alone cannot explain this. Riders use Valyrian words sometimes, but not for dragons to hear them.
Vla.
Not with reins either. A human will never exert enough force to physically control a dragon. And Daenerys doesn't use reins at all.
What do I hold on to?
Whatever you can.
So how then? Actually, the most likely answer is not physical control at all. Let's remember what kinds of human-animal magical interactions we know. The obvious one is skin changing, or warging.
What's wrong with him?
But you've never met a warg.
People that can enter the mind of an animal and see through its eyes.
Where were you this time? The fist of the first man.
The most advanced ones can enter the mind of any living thing, including trees. How do they do that? George Martin explained it very thoroughly in the books. They don't command animals. The bond works through a merging of minds. That's what the books tell us about skin changing. Dogs were the easiest beasts to bond with. They lived so close to men that they were almost human. Slipping into a dog's skin was like putting on an old boot, its leather softened by wear. Wolves were harder. A man might befriend a wolf, even break a wolf, but no man could truly tame a wolf. All the Starks are skin changers in the books. They did not see through their wolf's eyes, but they still shared intentions and emotions. The intention is the key. Words can be used, but they just give a form to it. But there is a catch that makes everything much more complex than it seems. The bond works both ways. Bran was warned about that in the books. Remember that, Bran. Remember yourself, or the wolf will consume you. You run with Summer. You hunt with him, kill with him, but you bend to his will more than him to yours. The same we see in the story of another warg called Varamir, who was not in the show. Wolves and women wed for life. You take one, that's a marriage. The wolf is part of you from that day on, and you're part of him. Both of you will change. What it means is simple. The animal can affect the warg too. And whose mind is stronger? That is the question. So we know from the books that skin changing is a two-way bond. We do not get the same technical explanation for dragon riding, but the story gives us enough hints to make a reasonable guess. Dragon bonds may work by a similar principle. You share your mind and your consciousness with an animal. That's how it knows what to do. Starks got this ability from Children of the Forest and the first men's magic. The Targaryens most likely got something similar through old Valyrian blood magic. That is why Jon Snow is both a warg and a dragon rider. He is a son of a Stark and a Targaryen. Now think about that. Dragons are apex predators. They are fire and fury. They don't negotiate, and they solve every single problem with total incineration. That's what they share with a rider. A rider becomes a bit of a dragon too. Maybe when Targaryens called themselves dragons, it was not just a metaphor. That could explain how Drogon saved Daenerys. Maybe he felt her fear across the distance and came to her aid. Most likely he wasn't just nearby by coincidence. He stayed somewhere close to Daenerys for all this time. And she felt him coming. So the bond is real. And when she started flying them, it got much stronger. In the show, Jon Snow felt it too. But we'll get to this a bit later. So the books never give us a technical manual for dragon riding. But if we compare it to skin changing, the closest magical bond we do understand, dragon riding starts to make much more sense. I know what you are thinking now. If it's the dragons sharing their rage with Daenerys, why didn't other Targaryens get off the rails too? In the House of the Dragon, we have many dragon riders. They have their share of troubles too, but they function normally and usually don't burn cities. What made Daenerys different? First, Daenerys is not just a dragon rider in the normal Targaryen sense. She is the mother of 3 dragons, emotionally attached to all of them. Even if the active riding bond is mainly with Drogon, her identity is built around all 3. Remember, the other 2 dragons stopped eating when Daenerys disappeared.
They are not eating. They haven't touched any food since Queen Daenerys left.
They couldn't see her, but somehow they felt her absence. Traditionally, one rider bonds with one dragon for life, and perhaps there was a reason for it. Maybe human consciousness cannot normally handle more than one dragon. After all, a dragon is no dog. It's a huge and very intelligent creature with strong will. One dragon is a lifelong tandem, but 3 dragons at a time? That may be too much. Not to mention Daenerys was never trained for that. But that is not all. The dragons and their influence are only one part of the reaction. But for a reaction to run fast, we need catalysts. And Daenerys had just enough of them. If you enjoy this video and you like breakdowns like this, please subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thank you. Let's examine her story and see the exact steps that led her there. And you know what? The King's Landing massacre has a lot in common with the beginning of the Dance of the Dragons. Before Daenerys gets herself a Dothraki army, she burns the calls. I'm not saying this is only the dragon's influence. Maybe she would have done something like that anyway. But the tendency is already there. When a threat appears, just burn it. Pure dragon logic. By the way, we all know that Daenerys from the show is immune to fire. Is she also immune to smoke and lack of oxygen and falling beams? How did she survive this burning temple? Anyway, she survives, gets herself an army, and something changes. Before all that happened, Daenerys seemed to put her Westeros dream aside, at least for a time.
I will not sail for Westeros.
She understood that conquering something and holding it are very different things.
How can I rule 7 kingdoms if I can't control Slaver's Bay?
Whether Slaver's Bay was a test run or she planned to stay there, we don't know. But it made complete sense. Essos was somehow familiar to her. Westeros was a huge, strange land with different people and customs. If she could not control Slaver's Bay, conquering Westeros was a bad idea, and she understood that.
You're a Targaryen. You're the mother of dragons.
I need to be more than that.
But then she suddenly changes her mind.
How many ships will I need to bring my Khaleesi to Westeros?
All the problems are still there, but she decides to go to Westeros anyway.
We sail for Westeros. And what then?
I take what is mine.
That is exactly what she heard in her visions. You are a queen in Westeros. Dragons plant no trees, and honestly, it's a pity the show didn't give us that moment. Anyway, she sails off to Dragonstone, but once she gets there, things start to go terribly wrong. The first thing she realizes after coming to Westeros is that despite her being the rightful queen, Westeros is not going to welcome her with open arms. She gets a few allies, but only because they want to fight against Cersei.
I realize you're here out of hatred for Cersei and not love for me.
Others treat her as a foreign invader with a foreign army.
Foreign invader. One with no ties to this land.
Westeros is a web of families with complex relationships, not a group of slaves waiting to be liberated. They would rather accept one of their own, even from a rival family.
Say what you will about your sister, she was born in Westeros. She's lived here all her life.
In the beginning, she wanted to get her throne with less bloodshed.
We will not attack King's Landing.
Instead of attacking King's Landing with all her force, she chooses careful strategy and planning. And by doing that, she gives Cersei the time to react. She loses all her allies.
They've been taken from me while I've been sitting here on this island.
Well, almost all. Jon Snow stays. And maybe it would have been better if he hadn't, because Jon becomes the beginning of her biggest problems.
Get a raven to Daenerys, tell her what's happened.
Saving him from the White Walkers, she loses one of her dragons. And it is much more than it seems. Let's remember one more warg from the story, Orell. Jon Snow met him during his time with wildlings, and they hated each other.
What happens to your eagle after I kill you?
When Jon killed him, his mind transferred into his eagle, and he attacked Jon as a bird. When the man's flesh dies, his spirit lives on inside the beast. But this story has a continuation in the books. Varamir knew the truth of that. When he claimed the eagle that had been Orell's, he could feel the other skin changer raging at his presence. Orell had been slain by the turncloak crow Jon Snow, and his hate for his killer had been so strong that Varamir found himself hating the beastling boy as well. So, a magical bond with an animal does not always end cleanly when one side dies. Something can remain with the surviving side. If dragon bonds work even partly like skin changing, then the death of a dragon is not just ordinary grief. Daenerys does not just lose a military weapon. She loses one of the beings she calls her children.
The dragons are my children. They're the only children I'll ever have.
And if that connection works both ways, then death may come with something more than pain. A dying dragon does not leave behind patience, compromise, or mercy. It leaves fire, fear, and fury. So the loss does not make Daenerys sad in a normal human way. It feeds the exact part of her that already solves danger with fire. But that isn't all. The North is not going to accept her either, despite all she has done. Sansa openly dislikes her. People want to fight for Westeros, for Jon, but not for her.
The Northmen are loyal to Jon Snow, not to her.
I want to fight for Winterfell, Lady Sansa, if you'll have me.
We can see it very well at the victory celebration. We see how uncomfortable she is. Everyone greets Jon, and she is completely alone. When she finds out Jon is a Targaryen too, it makes things much worse.
She loses the North. She loses the Vale. Sansa will make sure of that.
She begs him not to tell anyone.
I've never begged for anything, but I'm begging you.
But he does. Of course, after that, no one wants her on the throne anymore.
He has the better claim to the throne.
She sees that the more she tries to make things good, the worse it becomes for her. Then, she loses the second dragon, and the final nail in the coffin is the loss of Missandei. Before that, she lost Jorah, who was also very dear to her, but at least he died in battle. Killing Missandei was Cersei's mockery. She did it deliberately to hurt Daenerys. You can see by her face that she is already close to her limit. And before her breaking point, she has a conversation with Jon, which gives us a clue of what's happening.
Far more people in Westeros love you than love me. I don't have love here. I only have fear.
She lost all the illusions. She stopped believing love could win her the throne and accepted fear instead.
Let it be fear.
So the final moment comes. She looks at the city where her enemy sits, the enemy who killed her dragon and executed her closest friend in front of her. What does she feel? The city surrenders. The Lannister army surrenders. Why doesn't Daenerys just order to find and arrest Cersei and take it out on her? After all, she is an enemy. The thousands of other people have nothing to do with her crimes. But it's not what she does. Why? There was already a moment in the history of the Game of Thrones universe that looked very similar to this one. Let's see how the Dance of the Dragons started. When young Aemond is riding Vhagar, he just wants to scare his cousin. Arax panics and attacks. He doesn't consider that the forces are not equal. For a dragon, it's just a normal way to respond to a threat. Lucerys tries to stop him, but it doesn't work. And what happens next? Vhagar completely ignores her rider's commands too.
No, Vhagar! No!
Even horses may ignore commands when the strongest stimulus appears. Vhagar has nothing to fear of this tiny dragon, but still, he dared to attack her, and she must destroy him. She doesn't care about future war and the consequences. Her own rage easily overrides her rider's sudden caution. So because Aemond starts playing dominance games on nuclear weapons, we get a full-scale war. He did not understand yet that with greater power comes greater responsibility. And here's another important detail. Making a dragon attack is easy. It is just natural for them. Making a dragon forgive, retreat, or show restraint, it's like trying to convince a tiger to calmly ignore a monkey that pulls its tail. That's exactly what happened to Daenerys. She wasn't threatened directly at this moment, but her enemy was right in front of her. She remembered everything, all betrayals, losses, Missandei's death, an unfair attitude to her. Drogon feels it too. He feels her anger and her pain, but he does not translate them into politics, justice, or strategy. He translates them into fire. And through the bond, Daenerys feels that answer coming back to her. Her grief becomes his instinct. She gets stuck in this loop, and on her face, we can see how the human disappears and the dragon takes over. The human reasons are still there. Grief, humiliation, betrayal, but they are no longer being filtered through human restraint. They are being expressed through dragon logic. Burn the threat, dominate the field, make the world afraid. In the final scene, we even have a visual hint. That is what she is. Part human, part dragon. All right, Cersei is gone. Is Daenerys done?
I can't justify what happened, but the war is over now.
Can we have peace now? Of course not.
When you heard her talking to her soldiers, did she sound like someone who's done fighting?
There is too much of a dragon in her already. She would not stop. She would become like her father, but much worse. It is interesting that Jon felt it too. He also rode a dragon.
If you've had that power, would you have burned the city down?
I don't know.
And Jon is not trying to protect Daenerys here by giving a vague answer. Jon never lies. He really felt it. That is why he understands she would never stop. You may ask, was it a chance for her to stay normal? I am sure it was. Dragons are not psychos. They are intelligent creatures. We can see them being around people all the time.
How many times were you in the company of these dragons? And did they ever harm you?
Never.
They don't just attack everything around them. They respond to threat, fear, and the rider's emotional state. If Daenerys did not lose 2 of them, along with her closest circle, if she was not betrayed many times, if she wasn't left completely alone, she could be a normal Targaryen ruler. What happened to her did not happen in a heartbeat. It was a result of a chain of events, each of them leaving more of a dragon and less of a human. So no, I don't think Daenerys simply snapped because she had bad blood, and I don't think she became mad in the ordinary sense. I think she became what her house had always worshipped: fire and blood. A queen with a dragon's power, a dragon's rage, and no one left who could pull her back. So what do you think? Did Daenerys go mad? Or did she become too much of a dragon? Tell me in the comments.